Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. You guys, I am your host, Dr. Jefferson, and today we are going to do a couple of things. But give me a sec, just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and do this direct share to my Facebook personal page out here because I did forget. But basically, while you're waiting on me to get that done, um, we did intentionally. Initially, we decided that we would restream the show that we streamed on Saturday, I think it was. That was kind of like the plan of action for tonight's show. But I felt like, okay, there is. Because I did forget. Sorry. There is this space where we had a conversation on yesterday about toxicity in relationships and what it looked like for people to be in healthy relationships. And myself and another clinician, Shannon, we were on and we were talking about the toxicity that single mother homes and even those homes without the single mothers per se, single parent homes, transitioning homes, and stuff like that, that are moving from having both parents in the equation and then now they're divesting from one another, right? Um, how much toxicity they add to the personality congruence of individuals. And I want to continue that conversation. I want to talk about what it looks like to have and create healthy cycles of behavior. I want to have a conversation around accountability tonight that welcomes the discussion around what it means to be Black, what the Black experience entails, because there are so many negative connotations and negative associations with the Black experience. So we're definitely going to review and we're going to talk about what we learned about the Ike and Tina relationship and the portrayal of that relationship on television. We can definitely revisit that conversation to some extent. But more importantly, I definitely want to stay very much centralized and focused on the negative connotations associated with being Black and how it is that we can reshape behaviors and rebrand ourselves as people who are identifying with the melanated community in America. This is a platform where we have the difficult conversations. Oftentimes, I'm known for the very unpopular opinion, and that's okay too. But I want to have that conversation with you guys, and hopefully, we can have that conversation and we can get this show done fairly quickly so that I can get into other things, which was the purpose of streaming a show and then intending to restream it for tonight's show. So, I'll see you guys back in about 3 minutes or so. So, hey, welcome back, you guys. And again, welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. Thank you guys for sitting out and taking the time and reflecting on the topics that I have decided to bring forth for today. I do want to have a comprehensive conversation, like I mentioned before, about some of the content creators that you choose to follow, the impact of those content creators on your worldview of what it means to be a Black person in America. Specifically, I've tagged a couple of them. I've tagged the Cynthia G, the Kevin Samuels discussion component, because I want to talk about the way that these two creators, and to be honest, I also want to talk about the Tanya TKO impact as well. But I want to talk about the way that content creators contribute to the narrative that the overarching theme of being Black is portrayed to the rest of the world, but not only to the rest of the world, but the way that that portrayal influences and impacts young people in the Black experience. So sometimes we live up to the expectations of the outside world and those people who are responsible for molding, cultivating, and shaping our lives directly, our parents. And sometimes we become people who are completely different from what they had expected, from what our culture and our subculture stands for. And sometimes we are the people who create the changes, and we create a new narrative for what it means for us to go through this experience, to live this experience, and to create our own understandings of what it means to be a Black person in America, to be an African American person in America, to be a person in this country in general. And so when we talk about some of the themes that we've seen over the course of the decades of our development, if we just reviewed maybe the last 6 or 7 decades or so, we've seen the Black family become one, move from being one of the healthiest existences that one could aspire to be a part of because of the struggle, what the struggle created and how we came out of that. We saw a community of people who were very much ready to take on the world, right? To redefine what it meant to come from a Black family. We saw that in the 1930s to the 1940s, 1950s, even when we're moving from them to those people who were raised in the 50s, we saw people who were ready to redefine their purpose, who were redefining their future and the outcomes for their children and grandchildren to come. We are the remnants of those lines. And so what I see now is that we've gone from that being very optimistic, being people who were driven by a dream, passion, internal motivation, to now we're the type of people that are easily swayed by onlookers. People can tell us that we are nothing, crabs in a barrel, if you will. And because they have shared that perspective of us, we eventually start to behave in that way. I've seen the shame that comes with being a Black person, because when people look at us, when people see us, and we're out in public and we look like a familiar face, they align us with popular figures they see on the TV, and their expectations of us behaviorally align with toxic behaviors. So it's now become a toxic thing to be a Black person in America because we have portrayed that picture. We've literally given away our culture, our pride, personal self-congruence and self-respect away for the dollar. If you look at YouTube, if you look at the content creators that I tagged the discussions of tonight about, these influencers are known for putting out negative commentary, but they wouldn't be so successful, right? If we weren't people who found entertainment in that negative commentary. You think about comedians and the role that they have played historically and us feeling okay to air the negative parts of our society, the negative parts of our culture for other cultures to see. If you look at Richard Pryor and the way that he contribute, if you look at Red Fox and his contribution, I played some content for you guys over the weekend, and we saw Red Fox's influence on Ike Turner in his life, in his steady decline. What do we have to say at this point? Like, how do we reshape behaviors at this point when we have now been taught by our ancestors, basically now, um, that it's okay for us to lose our respect? It's okay for us to lose admiration. Whereas the Black family was seen to be people who were neat, who took pride in being clean, who took pride in being very well kept and very well educated, and the educational principle. These things that we used to value so much because we were Black, because we were African American, we no longer value those things. And we found ways to make excuses for our lack of investment in these things, knowing that these are the things that essentially will allow us to elevate ourselves to these spaces that we have blamed the white man for disallowing us in. It's interesting to me how we are constantly our own demise. And somehow we have found a way to be comfortable in that very uncomfortable space, but in a way that allows us to perpetuate the cycle instead of interrupt it. So let's talk about the toxicity that starts with the nuclear family. Motherhood is something that we have been taught for ages on end, allows a woman to truly step into her purpose. It's supposed to be this grand thing that's filled with light, that's filled with joy, that's filled with laughter, great moments, memories, impact, if you will, and a lot of affect. But historically, we've seen Black mothers lose their ground and no longer have the respectability politics that once were attributed to Black mothers. At one point, an African American woman was seen as the person who is not only the caretaker, right, but also the educator for a nation of people. And now the Black women are completely divested from official, or should we say, um, book seated education. Hey, Rush, how are you? So now the Black woman is not the educator. She's not responsible for molding and cultivating and shaping the nation of people. Now she's responsible for only molding, cultivating, and shaping toxicity in the Black community. So we've moved from a point of very high admiration to nothingness. But that nothingness, that whole baby mama culture, that whole, oh, that's my side chick, my side piece. When we're seeing all these videos, all these content creators come out with all of this stuff, who is the face of these catastrophes? That's what I'm going to call them, catastrophic events to the Black community. Who is the face? Who do you see? When you watch reality TV, who do you see? Says you don't think the alphabet gang plays a part of destroying the image of the Black nuclear family. I think in and of itself, a person's sexuality doesn't have anything to do with the respectability politics that is rendered to that particular subculture of people. I think outside of that part, I think that the way that we express our sexuality, I think that the way that we express who we are, I think the opportunities we allow ourselves to be a part of has a lot to do with the respectability politics. And I think that Black people have learned to be our own crutch. And I think that we are a culture that has been permeated by negative connotations associated with the era of, or the bare mention of, being black. So now being a black person means that you're gang affiliated, means that you're from the hood, of the hood, from the streets, of the streets. If we look at what happened recently in news yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday morning, one of the most notorious gangsters in New York streets, when we're talking about drugs and moving money, was gunned down on Halloween. It was interesting because he was in witness protection in the same streets, in the same streets that he was taken off of. After killing, how many people did they tie him to? He was convicted of killing 9 people. So that's beyond what it is that he did, but this is just the convictions, right? And yeah, and eventually he got off on all of those murders essentially by turning state's evidence, or should I say fed. Yeah, but that's how he got off, right? But he's in these same streets that he came off of, the same streets that he's murdered people's sons, daughters, grandsons, cousins, daddies. Now in his 50s, having had such negative impact on the same culture of people where we're perpetuating that cycle. Maybe he was a part of it, but he's definitely not the beginning and he's not the end. Why? Because we have glorified and decorated and pedestalized the dope dealer. We've glorified, pedestalized the what did he call it? The fast money lifestyle. It's beautiful. We like all the trinkets, we like all the jewels, we like all the gold, we like all the money, but we don't want to work. The black community has gone from very hardworking people, pride-filled people, Christian people, if you will, but very spiritual people, and people who truly believed in having a purpose and living a divine purpose while on this earth. We've gone from that to completely divested from any type of religion or spirituality, and also people who have no belief in what the future may entail for them, have no hope. We have no dreams. It's all gone. He says hi. What up? Yeah, but I feel like, having sat with where we are right now, having sat with where we've, I guess, the cycle of us developing these negative cycles of behaviors, negative responses, and also these negative thirsts, right? So our desires don't even say that we really want anything longitudinally. Um, let's bring that last comment back up. I didn't see it. It says, in a way, I think Apple wanted to go out that way. Being a martyr for the culture, he couldn't handle a civilian life. I agree. I totally agree. And that's why I said he returned to those same streets after you've been placed um in a position to where you are the highlight of what it means to be a black dope dealer, gangster, killer in these streets. When the world has glorified you in that role, when we've called him the best that ever did it, when we've done these particular things, right? That's us. That's us. It ain't the white man. It's us. And I'm going to show you how we do it. We do it by way of continuing the cycle. So when we are people who are part of those same neighborhoods, those same hoods, if you will, where our children are now being exposed to the gang culture, exposed to a lack of parental oversight and things like that, when that becomes us, right? When we've redefined that as who we are as people, because we've glorified those people who brought that into our culture, we've glorified those people who have made it in that lifestyle from our culture. Johnny Curry. Okay, he was one of the first people, not just black people, to bring that negative ideation into the culture and to glorify that lifestyle. Okay, so when that becomes the thing, right, the centralized focus, goals, if you will, what do you think is going to happen to the future of the black community? So Liz says Alpo was marked for death. Anyone who can murder their best friend really doesn't appreciate the value of life. You know what? I think you got a point. But I think anybody who can be on these streets and that can just take a life for no reason whatsoever, when it comes to logical frames of thought, I think anybody that does that has a certain level of karma that is going to definitely come their way. But my main thing is that he was put in witness protection. So if he was placed in witness protection and he's been in witness protection for all these years, what was that, 2013, I think it was, can't remember. But so if he's been in WITSEG all this time, right? If he's been in this witness protection program and he doesn't have to be in these New York streets, that's what I'm saying. For him to return to Harlem, to the same streets where he was doing all of this stuff, what that says is, in his mind, he's adapted the mindset that the fast money, quick money, this is the life for him. So he doesn't want to live a regular life. No, nobody wants to do that. For what? Right. But we've glamorized it. We're the people that pedestalize those types of behaviors. And then when it's time to have the conversation about accountability, we shy away from the conversation and we make a million excuses as to how that's not us. That's not us. So let's bring up the comments. Let's talk. Let's see what you guys are thinking so far. Says he wanted to still be a badass, hiding a witness protection program was failing in his mind. I agree. I totally think that that's true. Fame is a hell of a drug. Yeah, but I think, like, to what extent do we divest from that idea? Liz, the mob culture is also celebrated. What was Liz's comment? But yeah, the mob culture is also something that's celebrated for Italian people. And they say that's what it means to be an Italian person, Italian American, should I say. Russian mafia. That's what it means to be a Russian American and also a Russian in general. Alpo was marked for death. Anyone who can marry his friend. That's not the one. I wanted to know what previous comment. Uh, Let me see. Let's see. Liz, you know what? I'm looking for your comment. So give me just a sec here. Okay, this one. Fascination with gang culture is not unique to black culture, but it is. It is. So gang culture is glorified in the black community more so than any. If we looked at the vast majority of people who are arrested for gang affiliation in America historically, it's black people, and it's increased over time. Now, as the lines of delineation were drawn and they redefined what it meant to be a part of a gang, you see culture as a gang as well. So now they've started to label, who are the people with the swastika? White supremacists, KKK. They have labeled them as gang members as well. They're a gang. So it goes outside, permeates from the prison walls. So culture as well. They're also considered to be a gang. But the thing is, that's not what it is to be a white person. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what the difference is? To be a violent gang member who identifies that it's who justifies violence by way of people wearing the wrong color, the wrong flag, or walking on the wrong street, those people, those are our people. When we are people who fail to own that as the large majority of the ideation of Black people and Black culture, when we are failing to own the fact that if people in Italy, Spain, Norway, in Finland, even, when people hear about American Blacks, what they think is violence, gangs, guns, drugs. You don't believe me? Like, why don't we ask a couple of people what they think when they hear about us? That's the first thing that they talk about. You know why? That's on the front page of every story everywhere in America, regardless of where you are, which city you're in, every single day. And it's on the front page in an abundance. There are so many deaths that I can't even begin to talk about the people who recently died that were Black people over the weekend in this last 24 hours. Who died by way of gun violence at that. He wasn't the only one. Here in Atlanta, going straight down the coast, North Carolina, Texas. It's we just this is a day-to-day thing, and until we own the fact that this is happening, and then this is how we've rebranded our culture. We've gone from people who have respectability politics, we've gone from people who have levels to this shit, as they say, people who have certain limits that will prevent them from the detriment of their whole culture, right? Until we do that, I think we're not being honest with ourselves. We're living in a delusional state of being. So, uh, let's see. Right, exactly, Mr. Brooks. And the thing is, like, this is now considered to be the norm. When we have a lack of parental oversight in our homes, our kids typically divest from the traditional mother and father are the rulers, mothers and fathers are the authority figures, and then they go join gang because they need a sense of protection and family because they can't look for their father in the home to be the protector. They can't look to their mother to protect them because the mother's kind of out working, and and I guess inflation probably plays a little bit into that. But also I think it starts with the education part. So if as Black people, we used to be people that valued education, we valued elevation, we valued positioning in life, these are things that we valued. And now we move to the point where most Black people they don't even have an interest in going to college because they associate going to college with accumulating debt. The families in the Black community used to save money to send their children to college. Believe it or not. Yeah. Now they save money to buy their children a car in high school and allow federal debt to consume their children in college. These are facts, people. The arrest reports shows us. And if we were to move beyond the arrest reports, right? Because I feel like that's where the most astronomical numbers typically present, right? But that's exactly what I'm talking about, Rush. That is the mindset of the vast majority of Black people, that college is a scam in the interest to take the money of Black people, to not give them anything. But if college is your way to elevate yourself, to educate yourself, to put yourself in a different position, to be able to hold positions that allow you to earn the money that you need, right? Right. When you hear people like Judge Joe Brown say things like, oh no, you just don't want to work for it. The reality is Black people don't want to have to work for anything. That's us. Right. Right, Mr. Brooks. It's where we've put our value. So we talk about these things are a scam, and think about it. I'm not even gonna let's break this down, you guys, because I didn't want to do this, but I'm gonna do it. So How much money do you think the average black family spends on Jordans over the course of their children's lifespan?
What is that?
How much money do you think that the average black parents spend on overpaying for rent because their credit score is ridiculous because they've invested in the things that don't return high on their investment? How many parents do you think have placed themselves in a financial disposition exactly instead of putting themselves in a place to where they can actually invest in the life insurance needed to bury their children over the course of a lifespan, cash life policies so their kids can withdraw from these policies and pay towards their college in the end, stocks and bonds their kids can cash out and gain on the gains or the profits of that said bond. This is not the mindset of the black family today. That was the mindset of your ancestors. And that's what I'm here to tell you. So now we've moved from a community of people that are well respected because they're well educated, they're well dressed, they look good when they come out, they move with a purpose, they're very intentional, they're hardworking, work ethic is impeccable, their attendance is impeccable. They're never showing up late. This is what it meant to be a black person back then. Now, to be a black person, it means to wake up late, to make excuses, to say that the white man's holding you down, to say somebody got their knee on your neck, to not go to college, to call college a sham, right? To call education a sham, right? To call having a 9 to 5 a waste of time because it doesn't yield the investment that you think it should. These are the facts of what it means to be black right now. Black people now want to placate. So whatever it is they need to say, they're willing to go say it to go along and get along to get what it is that they want out of a person in order for them to gain ground in life. But nobody wants to make a real investment. Nobody really wants to do anything that says that longitudinally I'm investing in myself so that other people who are watching me model this behavior may invest in themselves in the same way because they see the fruits of their labor. Nobody's teaching these things. You know why? I think the mega churches have benefited off of the black families' misalignment. Exactly. Easy. And you before you know it, over the course of their lifetime, you have spent about a good 10 grand on just Jordans. That's per child. And then you standing in long lines to get them. And then they old shoes. Retro equals the shit came out a long time ago. Why are we in this line again? We're not even standing here to get something that's unique to the process. Like this has already been introduced to the culture. We've already seen this model. Like, I don't know. So, where we place our values has a lot to do with where we grow and how much wealth we attain over the course of a lifespan, people. I think that the black community, the toxicity of us has been glorified. And it's not a thought, it's a fact. I'm just going to be honest. It has. Fast money has been glorified. And if we have a 9 to 5, that's been vilified because having a 9 to 5 or working for someone else or being held accountable for your work performance, those types of things mean that you're a simp for the process. When do we change the narrative? That is my question. When do we make a conscientious decision to change the narrative, to not be a part of the process, to not be a part of the stereotypes that are out there? When can we truly say that these things are stereotypes because we've decided to conscientiously and very intentionally do something different? That's my question. You as a black person, when is it enough excuses? Like when is enough enough? When is it not okay to be a baby mama, to be a baby daddy? When is it goals to be a wife? That's one of the things that Shannon mentioned this weekend, yesterday when we were on the show, and I thought that that was probably one of the most impactful things that I've ever heard anybody say. She said, around here, we don't talk about girlfriends and boyfriends. We talk about husbands and wives. We're going somewhere with this thing. We're dating with a purpose. We're intentional around here. We've now welcomed the toxicity of even dating lives. And you wonder why the parenting practices of these young people are declining. You wonder why so many of these young people are divesting from one another. You wonder why people don't see an investment in marriage in the Black culture. It's because there is no investment, because there is no sense of culture. I think that at some point we have to differentiate and say, I will be the change that I would love to see, right? And so, since I'm going to be the change that I would love to see, that means those people who come after me, those people that I'm responsible for molding, for cultivating, for shaping, I'm going to put the work in with those people. I'm going to expose those people. And when I say those people, I'm talking about your children, okay? I'm going to expose those human beings because the first thing is your mindset has to shift. Okay? Exactly. It starts way before middle school, Mr. Brooks. So when your mindset shifts to now you're a person who appreciates your role as a parent, who understands your role as a parent, who is now intentional about your role as a parent, right? When that mindset shifts, what happens is you're now a person who believes that there will be a return on your investment because life has a greater purpose for this investment you have made, right? And so when you change your mindset, you guys deported me back to Obama. During Obama time, you were deported?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
He love the U.S.
But yeah, that's everybody outside of the US. They see the profitability potential. But the thing is, people from the United States, Black people in our culture of, or should I say, subculture of being American, have made so many excuses that we can't be people that step into opportunities with a mindset that we can do what it is that we can do, what it is that our opportunities will allow us to do. And so when we make too many excuses, we start to adapt behaviors that are self destructive. So we become our greatest adversary. Before you can ever make profit in life, you have to put an investment in your time, investment in your culture, investment in ideology. You have to shape the ideals that will yield great fruit for our future, you guys. We can't be people that are now still stuck in the cycle of glorifying negative cycles of behavior, step into cycles where we're glorifying and we're pedestalizing people who show up on, what's that thing? Reality TV, right? When do we stop making excuses and make a stand for what's right, for seemingly what's ours? If we are Black people who say, I don't identify with drug culture, I don't identify with gang culture, I don't identify with disrespect, I don't identify with men and women being disrespectful towards one another. Kevin Samuels and Cynthia G would not exist if we were not a culture of people who supported that hypocrisy. I'm just going to call a thing a thing. If the behaviors that have become like the part of the perpetuation of the cycle never existed, I think that we would still be a culture of people who were very pride driven, very motivated, and unbothered by this world and its fruits. Because people have to respect you when you are placed in a position of respect. So there was a young man on that show with Judge Joe Brown and that young lady yesterday. Or maybe it was the day before yesterday. Yeah, I think it was the day before yesterday. And the young man said, "Oh, well, that's because the white man took our opportunities away. So we gotta go to the streets and we gotta sell drugs and we gotta do this, blah blah blah." And Judge Joe Brown said, "Okay, so what about getting a regular job?" And I think he said that he can't get a regular job. And he talked about I mean, historically, Black people have always been placed into categories where they are only allowed certain opportunities. So they can only apply for certain jobs because they only are allowed certain educational opportunities. They're only allowed to make it to a certain point, but a Black person can't hold this office or that office, right? And he said, well, the thing is, you're saying that, but I went to college and I'm educated and I worked really hard and I became an attorney and I became a judge and I'm making that kind of money. So whereas you say that a Black man can't do these things, I've already done them. And the young man was arguing with him and saying, "You're an anomaly. You're one person. You're one person doing that." And people tell me the same thing. But really, what's interesting to me is this: I value hard work because hard work yields great results for me because I make sure I put the work necessary in to fulfill what it is that I want in life. Okay. Until I meet the goal, I'm going to continue to thrive. I'm going to continue to strive to thrive. And in whatever space that I'm in, I'm still going to make it in that particular space because one thing about me is that I will not put myself in a position to where I'm living above my means. Life is about levels, people. So when I said that we would have this conversation and I would teach you guys behaviors that allow us to elevate, to reposition ourselves, to rebrand ourselves as reputable people, as a culture of folks. Let's talk about that. If you live above your means, that means you know that you don't have enough food to make ends meet tonight, right? You know you don't have enough money in your pocket to go out to the club. You know you don't have enough money in your pocket to pay your bills, right? But you're still going to put money together and borrow money and sign up for what is it, afterpay, quad pay. What are all those things? So many of them. Okay. You're going to sign up for all of those things and you're going to go out there and you're going to get that $1,000 wig. Now, I ain't going to say I'm getting $1,000 wigs because I get my $1,000 wigs. Okay. But I'm well within my means. If I were not able to do that and be financially covered and all of my bills are paid in my household and we still have food in our mouth, like there is some basic things, you guys. I need you guys to condition yourselves to some basic things. If you're not going to be able to pay your bills, not having to worry about things getting cut off, if you're not going to be able to do all of those things that are basic necessities, don't go out there and indulge in the things that you know you don't need. And then I think it really kind of boils down to, let me take it back another elementary level, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything, right? But we have to discern what is a need and what's a desire, right? So if you desire a thing, just because you want something doesn't mean that you have to go after it. Besides, one ain't never got anyway. So at the end of the day, if you desire a thing, keep that desire. That actually might motivate you to work a little harder, but go through the process. Allow the process to work for you. Getting a 9 to 5 is okay. Working at a fast food restaurant is okay. And to be honest with you, I think most fast food restaurants are paid more than administrative assistants and clerks now. Don't shoot the messenger. Go work at Walmart. Go work at Walgreens. Go work a retail associate's job. Go work at, well, I ain't gonna say a bank because the bank, they actually get paid quite a bit. And I was surprised, you know, they get started off with like $20 an hour with no experience. They train them on the job and everything. So if you guys are interested, bank tellers, they make a considerable amount of money with no experience. He says, I think that drugs and marijuana is playing a huge part in why these kids are not being productive. Oh, it's not a thought. Of course, that's one of the main reasons. It's one of the main reasons, Mr. Brooks. Later days, George. No, it's Jorge. He's from Portuguese, right? Yeah. So I think it has a lot to do with the marijuana, but I think it also has to do with cocaine, believe it or not. I think it has to do with um amphetamines. I think it has to do with the culture in America in general being one that feeds and attends to sickness versus wellness. Um, it's a lot. But I think that people do need to divest from those behaviors. But first, it takes people to model the type of behavior that looks like goals that replace the goals they've already conditioned to be acceptable. He said they want to smoke weed rather than get a good paying job, which they will. Yep. Mm-hmm. Portuguese are nice people. Of course. It's nice in Portugal. But some people are very interesting over there too. So I'm just gonna say that. So I'm gonna go back to the comments, you guys, so that we can wrap up. But I want to know you guys' perceptions of what it means to be black. What does it mean to be a person that is black and who embodies greatness? What does black excellence look like to you? And what does goals in the black community look like to you? Because we've talked about some of these negative connotations. I've not really talked about goals and what that should look like. I feel like so many of the toxic activities, the toxic presentations of parenting, of growing up, of being a black person, the whole baby mama, baby daddy, boyfriend, side chick, side dude, all of these things. Let me be politically correct, side nigga, right? That's what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that ideation has taken the place of value for family, value in system, right? Value for self and what it means to be a respectable person in the community. And as a result, modern day women and modern day men feel like they have to bump heads. They have to collide, right? They've got to go head on with one another. They've got to be invested in arguments with one another. They've got to defend their positions because they're being disrespected. But what they don't understand is that your public outcry for that attention and your public outcry and your public display of disrespect for one another within the same culture, it says something greater about our culture that we're missing the picture of. Okay. If you see black men and black women publicly divesting from one another and naming and putting on front streets their inadequacies, if I'm another culture of a person, I'm like, damn, they really ain't got divide and conquer. Have you guys not heard of that? When you are divided as a nation of people, you are conquered quite easily because conquering you first comes on an emotional level. Your mindset is the beginning of everything. Everything. Understand, if it does not start with you, the cycle of reconditioning cannot be started at all. So I feel like we have to do the things that teach positive co-parenting techniques, okay? Some of the people that I think should be goals in society are the better parts of yourself. That's going to be the first person that I'm going to name that you guys should be admiring out here. Oftentimes people want to look to external sources for validation, and we want to look at other folks and we want to say, oh, the grass is greener over there, right? Those people are goals over there, right? But we don't know what kind of work is taking place behind the scenes, and we don't know what toxicity or a lack thereof exists behind the scenes in their household. So the very first person that I say that you guys should start modeling behavior after is going to be the better parts of yourself. Find ways to re-identify who you are. Find ways to differentiate from the black culture as a whole and find out who you are and what you stand for and how that can reshape the ideals of the black community in America. how that can contribute to the rebranding of the Black community in America, how those components, because the better parts of you, the best parts of you are beautiful. The best parts of all of us are beautiful. And if we step in and invite those parts and give those parts a seat at the table, we change the directionality of the conversation about the Black community. We become people who stand for something when we see something. We become people who fight when we see these people trying to spit on our name, spit on our culture. We become people who will sit down someone and pull someone to the side when we see them in a public display of disrespect for one another that is within our community. We become people who are interested in hearing and understanding the perspectives of those people in our culture. We become people who have high respectability politics, and as a result of that, we are not people who are quick to pull a gun, a knife, or whatever, a hammer, and bash in the brains or shoot the brains out or shoot the guts out, this, that, and the third of our brethren. We're people who break bread with the people who cause us discomfort and frustration, who have a conversation, sit down over a glass of wine, perhaps, and have these conversations about how it is that I was impacted by the things that you did, but it's not necessarily your fault. But let me understand why it is that you did what you did, or why it is that you feel how you feel, right? A better understanding leads to better behaviors. Okay. So co parenting requires us to sometimes sit with those people who hurt us. It sometimes requires us to sit with their perceptions of why it is they do what they do, but not from a place of judgment, but from a place of curiosity so that we can understand them better. And if we understand the people that we are forced into these relationships where we are, basically paired for a lifetime, if we're productive in that relationship, if we understand their behaviors, what motivates them, then we can maneuver ourselves around our relationship in a different way, and we can allow them to understand us, and we have a more effective relationship and communication overall. So we have to heal those components of us that are hurt by their actions, but understand that our pain only comes from our allowance of those people in our life. And we have to understand, when we allow people in our lives and we allow things to happen to us, it doesn't mean that it's our responsibility per se. We just have to take accountability for those deeds, for those events, for being there in those moments and experiences, if you will. Starts with creating healthy boundaries. Too many Black families have very permeable boundaries. Too many Black people have permeable boundaries. Too many Black people will say, oh, well, I think it's disrespectful when a person says nigga. But if they say it with a hard R, it's real disrespectful. So I'm going to break your jaw. But if that word is coming from a friend or a family member, or if we see another racially derogatory type of comment coming from us, towards another culture of people, it's okay, right? What that says is that the way you felt that that term was disrespectful to you, if you felt that even at all, you really don't stand on it. It's basically contingent upon something else happening. And boundaries are not situational, they're permanent. Think about a house. A house that has certain beams in certain places, the beam doesn't reconstruct where it goes every year. It stays in place so that the house is firm and the foundation is firm and it's stable. So people who are stable don't have boundaries that move around, because that house is built on a foundation that is built to last. You understand? So think about it in that way. Um, I want to say that the baby mama, and baby daddy, those things, baby daddy, I want to say that those things lead to parental alienation. Even our ideations can lead to the alienation of a parent because the way that we relate to them, our children see that and they take that and they run with it. So if we're disrespectful towards other parents in the presence of our children, then we are people that perpetuate the cycle of incongruence with our young boys, where we know they need their fathers. Incongruence with our young girls when we know they need their fathers. And both the same in the reverse, because children need both parents. They need the love, affect, and the psychosocial conditioning of all parents. They do. They have an innate need for those things so they can, identify with who it is they're becoming in their journey. And you have to be a supportive parent. Sometimes that means that you have to put to the side what you want to say to the other parent in the presence of the child. But be adults, have those conversations offline. One of the very interesting things that I find to be consistent amongst young black people right now, modern day black people, is that there is always a viral video of us interfering with custody, interfering with access, interfering with basic communication, because we are in a place of vulnerability because that person left us, didn't want to be with us, moved on with someone else, and we feel jealous. We've got to get past that. We've got to be people that heal and move forward with a new found, I guess, lease on life. I understand that some people, it's hard, but you got to. It's fair. And I always tell people don't do it for your kids, because the thing is, when you find yourself doing it for the kids, you find every excuse to be disrespectful to the other parent every time. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for the kids. Do it because you respect you. So move from a place where you have so much self respect that you refuse to engage in frivolous attempts to get the attention of that person that obviously no longer is invested in you, because it's not going to work. Okay. So I want to know from you guys what your thoughts are. I want to know what you think that Black people need to do in order to get back to a more sound and ideal um, view of who we are. So I like what Shannon said yesterday, that she said husband and wife when she talked with her grandchildren instead of baby mama, baby daddy. Exactly. Exactly. That's what resonated with me on so many levels. And I was just like, that's definitely a positive starting point. But also, I think talking to young people about the value of having life insurance, the value of saving, the value of having bonds and stocks, and then demonstrating what that looks like, financial responsibility and congruence. I think, yeah, that comes with the financial responsibility thing. Because if you're financially responsible, if you're paying all of your bills, by the time it's time for you to start applying for credit cards and things like that, by the time it's time for you to do that, you'll have the flexibility financially to do that because you've taken care of everything on time. You see what I'm saying? But I think that more Black people have to get into the mindset that hard work is a part of the process. Having a 9 to 5 is a part of the process. My children have all been employed from the moment they turned 14 in the United States. And even before then, they had very um, interesting ways of being entrepreneurs. Okay. But they had to learn that they were employees of their household first. So I think it does start at home. For me, I have a system that I, use to raise all of my kids. And I feel like kids have to learn to earn and then spend based off of a point system, then financial system. You're giving them a allowance. And it's not about paying them for what it is that they're supposed to do every day. It's about giving them the foundation of hard work yields a return on their investment. So they're invested in doing the hard work. They're invested in doing the labor that it takes for them to stabilize whatever it is that their chores are entailing, right? and they're getting something out of it, tangible, right? That they can now learn to apply in this real world with financial literacy. They can learn that if I want this, I can't necessarily get this because it costs this much. So that means I need to save for it. I just think that there are so many things that contribute to our misalignment, you guys, and we've definitely got to do better. So I'm just going to go through and reflect on some of these comments really quick. Uh, Judge Joe Brown is a whole lush. I think Judge Joe Brown is. Let me tell you guys something. I like Judge Joe Brown and Judge Mathis.
Great Mathis.
Mm-hmm. I have always liked both of them, and for different reasons. I think they both come from interesting backgrounds, and they are the true depiction of Black excellence. I feel like they show the young man that is engaged in negative behaviors, negative cycles, gang activity, all of that you can be more than your moment.
They don't they appear to be superficial where they still are true to themselves, they just educated with it.
Well, I think they're still true to themselves.
I mean, some people just get, they like I said, oh, you think you're white, they got education. Enough they got education. They don't come off like that.
Why do Black people equate
that what they say.
Being educated with being white? And I've heard that when people say, "Oh, well, I thought that you were a white woman when I heard you talk," and things like that. I'm multicultural, and it's very interesting to me.
Change you for a thing to, well, come to the South, you go up north, come here talking proper stuff like that. Just because you learn proper English, you just think that you just been educated.
Talking proper.
Yeah. So they kind of go with the territory.
I find that to be interesting. Not to do a comparative analysis of negative ideation about people in the North versus people in the South, but the test scores of people in the North.
Are way higher?
No.
Not?
Are much lower in the Black community. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was just the opposite. Moved them way low. They were already higher.
No.
I don't know. Times don't change.
So why isn't this taught in school? Not everyone has a parent that know or can teach their children about money. Believe it or not, Jenny, it is taught in schools. However, when it's taught in schools, it has to be reinforced. Those principles have to be reinforced at home. Children go through financial literacy at two different time periods, if you will, while in school. They go through it basically a couple of years during elementary school, and then their educational criteria gives it to them another time on a more expanded view with government economics. And that's in high school. So they, I think that, and they do get a couple of, what do you call it? What are those other classes they have when they're in middle school so it's a social studies class. Right, Liz. They still have economics classes. Now they don't have home economics. They have government economics, and they teach the financial literacy component in those same courses, Liz, actually.
Home economics is on a lot of people.
Yeah, home ec was about
cooking and doing stuff like that, the wood shop.
Wood shop. I thought that when back in the day, the way they introduced the home economics and wood shop theory, it helped to teach gender roles and to reinforce the basic mindsets of what it meant to be a boy and what it meant to be a girl. And then when they had people cross section when they had boys and girls now registering for both, and they can't make a prerequisite that you're a boy or girl, right? They just hope that you got the right kind of interest. But I think that that's when they started to shut it out, because I think that this was a time period, late 90s to 2000, they really started to realize there was an influx of boys identifying as gay and girls identifying as lesbian. And I think that they thought that was a solution to the problem, because many of the meetings that I attended during that time here in America, that's what the conversation was focused around. And that was really interesting to me, how the outcome was now they no longer have those classes. But another thing that I think that it perpetuated the cycle of is teen motherhood.
Yeah.
Even though they were teaching skills that very much needed to be taught when it came to having a baby, responding to the cries of baby and things like that, I think that at the same time, they normalized what it meant to be a teen mom, because there was an abundance of teen moms in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, and it just continued throughout the course. Like I said, the last 6 decades have been the decline of the Black community. And I want you guys to really look back and see what that looks like. I want you guys to look at what signifies being Black at the very first. If we look 60 years ago, what did it look like to be Black 60 years ago? And then let's now look at what we've learned about what it means and what the rest of the world sees in the Black experience from year to year to year, as we get on down decade to decade to get decade, these last 6 decades. And I just think that you guys will find that our declination has come because we devalue the respectability politics that used to come along with the label of being an Afro American person. There are so many things that I think that we went so far left on that we can't sum that up in a show. But continue to, share your thoughts and reflections. I think that Mr. Brooks definitely shared some extremely valid points tonight. All of you guys, actually. So big shout out to the chat. Continue to like and share the content. And if it didn't resonate with you, feel free to let me know what didn't and what you disagree with, because I like to have conversations that expand my understanding of how other people view the world that we're in. So I think that that's the best way that we can move forward and have a collaborative conversation that ends with promoting positive politics, positive congruence in the Black community, and those people who associate themselves with the Black community, because I feel like we are a one subculture of folks, but we're all impacting everybody no matter where we're going, because we're all systemically connected. If you look at it, what is the value of customer service? I talked about that today. Boy, at these fast food restaurants, these kids, yeah, it's no thank you. Right. And then when we go to Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A is the only place where we go and people start to feel like man, it's a special thing for someone to say their pleasure to serve us. Right? So I think that we have to ask ourselves, why are our children so disrespectful? Why is it that these kids have no respectability politics? Why do these young people, these modern day adults, have the ideology that fast money is the way to go? That now, right, right. Why is it now the point of contention to become a rapper versus becoming a doctor or a lawyer? Why do we look at education as being, what did he say? A scam. Why do we look at the education system like that instead of looking at as an investment? Like, why are parents no longer saving up money to send their kids to college and valuing the education that they'll get as a result of that, and the long-term success that they're setting their children up for? And the other component before we go, you guys, as we're wrapping up, is this. Understand that just because someone else tells you that you cannot do it doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity within yourself, or that the world will not bend to your will when you do find it within your grasp to do a thing. Be intentional with your energy, be intentional with your purpose, and be passionate about what it is that you find is your purpose, so that you can excel on every level. But make sure you're making this stuff count, because some of us define our purpose as providing herbaceuticals on the street. Okay. I don't feel like college is a scam. I feel like college is what you make of it. And if you make a good choice when you're selecting a college, you had a good experience, you said? I did too, and I've been to several colleges. But I had some really interesting experiences still. Yeah. But still, I think that college is an investment. So it's what you do with it. However, I have seen and I do feel like several educational universities, community colleges, tech schools, I do feel like a lot of them um, are unethical. I'll say that and I'll leave it at that. But you have to make your choices accordingly, right? So if we are people who invest, who believe in education, and we invest and believe that college can be something that helps us, what happens is when we're applying ourselves to take those aptitude tests like SAT, PSATs, ACT tests, and things like that for college entrance exams, when you're taking those, you got a whole different energy. Your children have a whole different energy. And as a result, they're accepted to more qualified institutions. Let's just put it like that. So it's been good, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time out and sit through this particular segment. If you guys did not check out the show that we did on Saturday, that was definitely the intended target for tonight's conversation, because I did want to restream it. But like I said, we wanted to continue this conversation. So if you didn't check out the show from Saturday or yesterday, go back and on the channel and check those two shows out. I feel like there is abundance of wealth in those shows. And if you've not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so now. I value you here, and this is a place where we value people who don't necessarily always agree with me, but I always value honesty and transparency on this channel. And more importantly, I value your opinion and your insight. So that is all I've got. You guys go out there and be well, and live life unapologetically, with positive affect for the world around you, but also positive inspiration and aspirations for greatness within yourself. Later days. Bye.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.